Welcome to Tokyo on a beautiful October afternoon. As a lot of you know in the news, we have a new prime minister coming in here, Takaichi Sanae. We're going to talk about who is this new prime minister. I know that the international media has been talking about this a lot, trying to introduce her to the world. They all in the West just focus in on her gender, and I don't think that that's really much of an issue. I think it is noteworthy that she is the first female prime minister in this role, but it's very well deserved for her for this position. And to me personally, I don't see her gender as playing any part in the reason why she was elected or not elected in the past. I just think that she was a very strong candidate. She has a lot of government experience. She's, I think, a stronger leader than Prime Minister Ishiba, but she has different strengths and different weaknesses than the last Prime Minister. And in this episode, I will talk about it in as much detail as I can, because I've been here for quite a long amount of time. This is my 27, 28 years. I came here in 1998. You guys can do the math. When I came in here, Prime Minister Ishiba, I'm going to put this graph up large for a second. Prime Minister Ishiba was the last prime minister who recently stepped down, and I came in here during Prime Minister Hashimoto at the end of his tenure, and the first prime minister really was Obuchi. But you can see I've been here for a lot of prime ministers. Hashimoto, Obuchi, Mori, Koizumi, Abe, Fukuda, Aso, that's the parties changed, Hatoyama, Kan, Noda, back to Abe, Suga, Kishida, and Ishiba. That's a lot of people that I've lived through in here in Japan, and each time has been something quite interesting. And you can see the Hatoyama and Kan and Noda were during the 2011 Tohoku earthquake and tsunami. It was just such a awful time. There's a lot of stress placed on the Prime Minister's office for sure, but you can see in that graph, Prime Ministers in Japan don't last a very long time. There's the 500-day mark, which is a little bit more than a year. Most Prime Ministers last about a year, you could say. On average, I'd say about 400 days, a little bit over a year. 3 Prime Ministers during the tenure that I've been here in Japan have had very long tenures. Abe's second term, Kishida, and Koizumi Junichiro, who was here for, I don't know, it was like 5 years or so. They had very strong, they were very strong leaders, whether you agreed with them or not. I think that the new Prime Minister, Takaichi-san, is very much aligned with the way that Prime Minister Abe led. A lot of the same policies, a lot of the same thinking. We call them like children. There were a lot of Koizumi's children during the 5 years that he was a prime minister, and now we have Abe's children, a lot of the people who came up within his cabinet. She's one of those people. It's not a good thing or a bad thing. I think that I think it is a good thing for somebody to have a lot of experience within the leaders. And I want to introduce you to Takaichi Sanae, and I did this for all the prime ministers as they go by. From the prime minister's office, I am really, really shocked. And I shouldn't be, that Japan has a prime minister's page in English, and I think it is for the international media to get things right in directly from them, instead of maybe assuming stuff. So Takaichi Sanae has a very, very long record of experience, so she's going to do a great job in this position, and I'm cheering for her. She was the Minister of Cool Japan Strategy, so she knows a little bit about what I do here, probably on YouTube. So she knows about the promotion of Japan for abroad, a lot of stuff. The Minister of State for Space Policy. That's not just like the space inside of a building. We're talking probably space up there. These are some pretty big positions here. She was born in 1961. She was born in Nara. She was part of the LDP. She was a member of the House of Representatives from the Nara district, I believe, graduated from the Faculty of Business Administration at Kobe University, and this is going backwards through all the ministerships, all of the experience that she's had in the government, a lot of it coming all the way back from when Koizumi was in office, back, when was that, like 2002? It's crazy. During Bush's term, that's when, I was here in Japan for that, for sure, and I remember Koizumi being a very strong leader. Not that everybody agreed with him all the time, but he was a very strong leader. And then we're going back in July 1998 when I got here. She was the parliamentary vice minister for international trade in the Obuchi cabinet. Oh, I loved Prime Minister Obuchi. And then she was a U.S. congressional fellow. She speaks English. She was with the Democratic House of Representatives for the Democratic Party. I think it was her name was Schroeder, for I guess it was a couple of years or a few years. So she knows the U.S. System of government fairly well from her experience learning from a Democratic House of Representative member. But her politics is certainly more conservative. It's very hard to compare the Japanese politicians with the Democrat and the Republican system in the United States. She's certainly more conservative than the last prime minister. I think she's perhaps a stronger leader. We're going to see, because it's one thing to want the job, it's another thing to sit down in that chair. Even every president will tell you that. It's so different when you sit down in that chair and become a leader of a country. But her first press conference, she certainly took charge. I watched that. She answered a lot of the press's questions, and the Japanese media's questions, they're so long and wordy. The Japanese media is maybe, I don't know, in some ways worse than the foreign media, if that's even possible. But their questions are so wordy. Like, they ask massively long questions, and a lot of them have some sort of spin, like the media always does here. And she does a great job. I was impressed with her Q&A on this. She's getting a lot of press. NHK World is covering this as well. Let me see if I can turn this down for a second. I'll talk about this a little bit. I'm going to put this in the window. I'll give it some commentary here. So they won the LDP leadership. Prime Minister Koizumi's son, Junichiro Koizumi's son, was the person who was runner-up for this. And I have a pretty good feeling that he'll become one of the nominees or the prime minister in the next, I don't know, 10 years. Who knows how long Takaichi-san's going to be prime minister, but I have a feeling that she's going to be prime minister for quite a while, longer than the list that I showed you. It just seems like, and she's a China hawk, yeah, whatever that means. I think she's very, at this time, we saw that a lot of people call it the fringe party, very right-wing party called the Sanseto Party is coming into power. It's gaining a lot of momentum. So it makes a lot of sense that we have somebody from the LDP might be leaning towards that side. We don't know how she's going to govern. She just got in there. Why is being a China hawk good for Japan? See, again, I don't really agree with that. And we're getting into a political thing, and I'm just going to stick with my own opinions and the way that is. And you can see, okay, she was also, I want to stop here for a second. She's also a TV reporter, so she's quite good at dealing with the media because she comes from the media. She is a very charismatic person in front of the camera and can answer the questions. She did a great job with her first press conference, and again, she knows the government so well because she's been in so many different kinds of positions. So I have no problem. She'll be very, very competent in that light. I don't think she's going to be falling asleep in any of the meetings either because she's still relatively young, like I am relatively young, I like to say, as well. But she's had, the things here say, a long road, right? She's been in the government behind Prime Minister Abe's first term. And again, there's a lot of things I don't agree. There's some things I don't agree with, and there's some things that I do agree with all of these politicians that come in. They all have their strengths and their weaknesses, but I do think she's probably the right person at the right time. They had a pretty good. They have a pretty good pool of people right there, and it's like, if you just see those cabinet pictures that they take every time, you know that everyone in that cabinet is going to become influential people like 5-10 years down the road, and she's been in a lot of those cabinet pictures. So yeah, I'm cheering for. She was also a drummer for a hard rock. Like a lot of these politicians have really interesting backgrounds. She was a drummer for a heavy metal group. So this isn't some stiff well, maybe now, I don't know. But she has a very interesting background, you know. So again, a drummer for a heavy metal group earlier in her life, not now. I guess she was doing it. And she idolized the Margaret Thatcher, who was the Iron Lady, a very strong prime minister, whether you agreed or not with the politics. Again, it's such a tough thing with the political thing. She has that kind of a desire to become a strong leader. And I'm very hopeful. Of course I am, because I live in Japan. This is my home. So I'm very hopeful that Japan can overcome some of the challenges that it has, and it's got a lot of challenges. Who became the first prime minister that was a big Elvis fan? Oh gosh, that's a good question. I don't know. I can tell you this. Okay, she's probably stiff from doing all those blast beats. I don't know, maybe. Koizumi, I believe. No, he had the hair to be a good Elvis fan. Maybe Koizumi, I don't know. I think they all secretly were Elvis fans, because in Japan in the 1980s, I remember when I got here in the 90s, Elvis was still a very popular international artist for karaoke. Every time Elvis's songs were popping up. Cobra Bebop's in the house. Is she single, and what do you think about the chances of becoming Japan's first husband are? Not good, and I don't know her marital status, so I can't. I only know the political side of it. I don't know her marital status. Nobody's really talking about it, which maybe she is single. I'm not sure. I know that the Prime Minister Kishida had a different relationship with his own wife than what normal marriages were. He was from Hiroshima, and they said that they weren't as close. I didn't even know what that meant. But in Japan, I think we don't really get too much, at least I don't, into people's personal lives that much. It's all about what kind of a leader are they going to be? How are they going to help the country? How are they going to bring the country together to get stuff done? And I think a lot of people are thinking the same stuff. Married, her husband is partially paralyzed. Okay, thanks for that, guys. There could be a lot of things in the background. I'm just going to stick to what I have here. I do know this for sure. She, Takaichi Sanae, has chosen as her vice president, and they do have vice presidents because they're also vice presidents of their political party. Somebody who's very interesting, and somebody who I kind of have an affinity with this dude. It's hard not to. He's the king of gaffes. A lot of people say he'll sometimes put his foot in his mouth and say the wrong thing at the wrong time, or just say. But he speaks his mind, and you have to respect that. But the vice president in her cabinet is going to be Aso Taro, or Taro Aso, I guess you know him as. And I remember I was here during his first, when he was a prime minister of Japan, and when they rolled out his introduction, it was fascinating because he is a huge otaku. He loves manga and anime, and this isn't a building. I was just showing this building a couple of days ago in Akihabara. They had you see that big massive billboard of him, and it's talking about Taro Aso's love for the manga. And there used to be a maid cafe on the bottom. Now I guess it's Soft Map, now an electronics store, but it used to be maid cafes in that building. And Taro Aso had a place of honor on billboards in Akihabara because he was maybe the first mega otaku. You can see there's his, maybe it's a little bit closer here. There's his picture. He's been mangafied. So he loves to read his manga, and so, by the way, Takaichi-san, also a big motorcycle rider. She seems like, yeah, cool old dude, Jason. Yeah, Taro Aso is a cool old dude. And even back then, he was a cool old dude, and that's like, what, 10, 15 years ago? But Takaichi-san's a pretty cool person, too. She's a motorcycle rider, drummer in a heavy metal band, so she's pretty based in that. I think that the politicians, the media has their own agenda with all of this stuff. I have to say, I've been, like everybody else, just tired of media. I don't care what your politics are, if you're left or you're right. You know, that's your own personal opinion, and you can stick to it. But for me, I'm just tired of media taking a side and talking heads giving their opinions rather than just giving the news and what's best for the country. I guess that's the media's job, is to find ways to divide everybody these days. I think a lot of the stuff that they're talking about with the politicians in Japan might be somewhat too divisive. I know they say like she's a China hawk, for example. I don't even know what that means. What I can tell you that she very much wants to bring everybody together, and she wants the economy of Japan to be going as strong as possible. And in order for that, they need good relations with China, okay? You can call her a hawk or whatever you want. In the end, whoever's the prime minister has to try to foster good relations with China. And I think that and she also has to foster good relations with the Japanese people and her party. So it's a really, really tough balancing act. It's, again, one thing to be, you know, a minister and not be in that chair, but now to your prime minister, it's definitely a much more difficult position to balance. And she's going to want to have a good relationship with China. And I really hope that she does find ways to build those relationships with China as well as with the United States. I think you have to find fair deals, and I think you have to find fairness in it. But if China is still really harshly talking about World War II, something that happened 80 years ago in generations that, you know, not many people are still alive from, and that's still such a hard topic, then it's always going to be really hard. And I think for Westerners, the prism in which East Japan looks at this, there's just a lot of pride and a lot longer memory than in the West. So it's different. I don't know how many generations it's going to take before we stop talking about World War II and the atrocities that happened then. But the best thing for the region is to move past it and try to find ways to work together despite it. You can't erase what has happened. But I think Japan's done quite a bit to make up for it. But your opinion on that is going to be different than mine, perhaps. Yeah, and we got some people writing it in the chat. I'm glad that you feel okay to write whatever you feel here. Again, you can disagree with me. I really don't care if you agree or disagree with me. In the end, I just, like everybody else, we want whoever is in power to be successful, because that means that Japan's going to be successful. When it comes to tourism and how this could impact tourism, I know that Prime Minister Ishiba, we'll probably hear more on her about this. But again, I see some people writing in about China and all this stuff. I want to talk about stuff that brings us all together rather than things that divide us. And there's going to be issues that China disagrees on, and of course there are issues that Japan's going to disagree with China. You can talk about that for days. This is more about an introduction of who this new person is and how is she going to govern? How is she going to be as a leader? I'm pretty hopeful. I thought that the two candidates I think if it was Koizumi as well, he would have been pretty good. I still think that Kono Taro would be a good prime minister, but maybe they're saving him down the line, or maybe he's lost some of that political popularity. I don't know, but he's a pretty based guy with a sense of humor. I love his Twitter feed or X feed. It's kind of funny to watch some of the stuff when he shows what they serve in the Japanese parliament for lunch and stuff like this. It's pretty funny to put a spin on that. But he also understands international politics as well as the digital stuff. Taro Kono U. Yeah, I don't, again, you could like him or not like him, but I think he's a pretty interesting person who knows quite a bit about the government. And again, when people get in this position of leadership, the prime ministership, it's all now about how do you bring the people together to get stuff done. And this government is more fractured than than when Abe-san was prime minister. So I think she's really going to have to find a way to bring people together. But a strong leader can do that. A lot of people, I think Prime Minister Ishiba, and I said this in the last live stream, he took a lot of political punches, which cleared the way, because there's a lot of corruption. There's a lot of corruption in Japanese politics. It's true. I mean, everybody thinks that Japan's such an honest society, and it is in many ways, much more so than maybe the West. I don't know. But in society, but when it comes to politics, lobbyists are very powerful. There's a lot of rules that get broken. There's a lot of stuff that, you know, a scandal is a scandal which isn't a scandal in the West is a big scandal in Japan, because I think that the Japanese hold their political leaders at a much higher standard than in the West. But a lot of the stuff that politicians might get away with in the West, they don't hear. And I believe that Kishida had a really big scandal. I think Abe as well. There's something with this cherry blossoms and taking money. It was like a very small amount of money. But in Japan, 1 yen, if you shoplift 1 yen, it's still shoplifting, right? I like that about Japan. You break the rules, it's still the rule. You break a law, it's still the law. It doesn't matter how much or how little, it's still the law. And that seems to really work for Japan. She might do good. So let's read some of the opinions here. She might do good, need to give her a chance. Yeah, I'm sure she loves her country. Yeah, and I don't want to read the rest of that. I'm surprised when I watch Japanese news and newsreels advertise certain shops, makes you less trust what you're doing. All politics become corrupt. Power becomes corrupt. When you're in a position of power, it's very hard to find somebody who's perfect. Takaichi Sanae has been in politics for a very long time, and it's very hard to maintain a perfectly clean image, but she's done a very good job, I think, of doing that. Some people fault her for being so aligned with Prime Minister Abe, but he was a very strong leader and the longest serving Prime Minister in the history of Japan. You can see there, what Japan needs more than anything are good leaders, and secondary to that, good leaders that can be in power for an extended amount of time, because if the leaderships keep changing, you get so little done. Right now, Cobra Bebop, I'm optimistic about the future of Japan no matter who's in charge. I love that way of thinking. Me too. Me too. I'm always going to be pretty optimistic. It sometimes feels like it's not, with the over-tourism and all the issues going on, and a little bit of a turn to the right. They're getting more vocal. That's okay, I think, because in the end, it always shuffles back to the center. The voices get heard, people agree and disagree, and everybody always comes back into the middle. And Japan's issues are nothing like what's going on in the West. So we will see what happens. But I've been here for a very long time, and I've seen all the ups and downs, and I'm still here despite it. And I will probably be here despite whatever happens in the next 5 years, 10 years, including earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, typhoons, you name it. Japan is not the safest country in the world because we have earthquakes and typhoons and volcanic eruptions and landslides and floods and all the other stuff that keeps this pretty good. Daniel's like, go women leaders. Yeah, she's the first female prime minister. I think the Western media really plays that up a little bit more. But I think in Japan too, a little bit, but to a lesser extent here, because she's a very well-known politician, and it was almost expected that she was going to be the winner because she's probably one of the most experienced. And that's sort of like it was before her. I could say it was like the next guy up. Now we can say the next person up, and maybe that's a good thing. But I don't think her gender really plays much of a big role. Although Prime Minister Abe said he was going to have more women in his cabinet, and he did. I don't think it was a lot more, but there was an increase there, and she says that she's going to have more in her cabinet. To look at, but still, the piece that she picked with former Prime Minister Abe becoming the vice, it would be like, how should I say this? It would be like if the next president is a Democrat and they picked picked Biden, a younger Biden, to be the vice president. That's sort of what this feels like. To have Taro Aso Taro become the next vice president. It's like bringing a former president to be the vice president in a way. It's interesting, but it's also a very smart move in a way, because it brings in a lot of legitimacy when you have somebody who's already been the prime minister helping you out. His tenure was not very long. It was a challenging time in Japan. After Prime Minister Koizumi, that's a tough act to follow. But he's a strong vice president candidate, and I was looking at like what exactly does he have. Like, I thought he put his foot in his mouth quite a bit. All right, but political correctness is not something that he cares much about, and that's commendable. He's an authentic dude. He's the guy who wears one of those like Godfather hats. Like, he wears one of the. He's tough. He dresses real cool. I gotta be honest with you. It's hard not to like. I don't care. There's the politics, and then there's the person, and it's hard not to like his personality. It's just unique and very interesting. He'd be a person like I would love to meet and talk to. Because he's such an interesting guy, Taro Aso. I try to say it in the Japanese way. It's confusing for me because I'm kind of like between both systems here. What do you think of the issue of the business startup visa going up to the price of $200,000? And is it $200,000 or do you mean yen? And is it going to hurt entrepreneurship? And how? I don't think so, Samuel. I think you kind of need to have. I think you need to have I'm not quite sure if that's the right number. Maybe you're right. I haven't seen it in a while, but I know it's been discussed, and I saw that in the news as well. Some people have been talking about it. That visa is an important one, but the problem with that visa was that it was very easy to manipulate that visa. It was very easy. I think the starting point was like 300,000 yen, or $30,000, which is not really a lot of money to start up a business and be successful. Again, if you have $200,000 or whatever the equivalent is in yen, which is what Japan goes by, I think you just need to show that you could get that capital. You could borrow that from a friend who might, I don't know too many friends that have that amount of money, but you could borrow that to the friend, you put it in the bank account, you get a statement, and then you send it back. That's all it really takes. You just have to say whether or not, you just have to state whether or not you can get your hands on that amount of capital. And if you can't, then it'd be really hard to you to see how you could invest in a company that's going to be successful. But the problem was with that visa, a lot of people were taking advantage of it. You also had to hire 2 workers, like get contracts and hire 2 Japanese and have a physical office in Japan. JETRO, the Japan Export and Trade Organization, they actually helped me when I started up my own business here. JETRO has office spaces, and if you have capital, they will give you a free office space, and I believe they still do that, a free office space in Tokyo that you can call your office. So that takes away some of the overhead costs, but you still need to hire 2 Japanese workers with a reasonable contract, which I guess is around at least 220,000 yen per month. But I mean, I've had friends though, or should I say friends, acquaintances, people that I know, or I've heard stories of like contracts. You just have the paper, but they're not real contracts. You'd furikomi or send the money, and then they would send the money back. There's a lot of underhanded stuff that happens with this, a lot of fraud, I guess you could say. So that visa was, and I've never had that visa, so that visa could be very easily manipulated. But it does prevent some people who might otherwise be really good business investors in here, but it's not really business investment unless you can get your hands on that amount of capital. Let's be honest with it. I don't know, but we could talk a little bit more about that in another episode. That might be a good episode to talk about, and get somebody who might be on that visa, right? Get somebody who might be on that visa and discuss what their feelings about that is. But I got a couple of people in mind. It might be good. Good to catch you live, John. I hope you're doing well. Ben, I am doing well. Ben Featherstone, thank you. From the United Kingdom there, right? Samuel, thanks for asking that question. It's on my radar now, and I'll see if I can get somebody on here to discuss some of those changes. That's my own opinion on it. I know a lot of people that took advantage of it, but I know a lot of people that probably, I've heard a lot of stories where there were potential fraud with those visas. So, and that's not good. I wonder if I could start a business from the trunk. Chan, you always make me smile. Chan's been in the trunk for years on this channel, folks. I think we need to send him the super chats. In the end, we're going to see whether or not the new prime minister is successful or not. But again, as you all know, I'm going to be cheering for her, as I have been for every single prime minister that has been elected, including Taro Aso, who is now the vice president. We haven't gotten the picture of her cabinet yet, but it's going to be really interesting to see, and I think for a lot of women in Japan, really empowering to see her standing there in the middle of a bunch of dudes. But I think there's going to be more women in leadership roles, and that's a good thing. But again, I always thought it's when you get these leadership positions, gender, race, your background, it doesn't really matter. It's all about the kind of leader that you're going to be ultimately. Will you be able to get stuff done? Will you be able to make the country stronger? Will you be able to make people's lives better? And we're going to see if she can do that. And again, Prime Minister Ishiba had his own flaws. A lot of people commented on the way he ate, some of his mannerisms. He was a little odd in some ways, but he was also, a really good person. But as a leader, we'll see how it goes. So he failed in the elections, and that's why ultimately he had to leave. They we didn't want to see another prime minister leave before 1 year. and I believe his tenure was a little bit over a year. I think it was number 44 in terms of length of prime ministerships. So it's not very long, but the position. So here's Aso's role in the Takaichi administration. Vice president, party leadership and internal coordination, not a cabinet post. All right, so it's not a cabinet post. That was interesting. I thought it was vice president. I thought it was in a cabinet. Not sure. Help guide the party's overall policy direction. So more of an advisor, but he's a very strong advisor. Act as a moderate voice on fiscal policy, balancing spending and debt discipline. Maintain factional unity. So maintain the LDP. I think he can do that as a former prime minister. He's well respected in the LDP. Advise the cabinet appointments and vetting of key officials. He knows a lot of people. He's been around for a long time. He knows a lot of people. Provide political continuity and credibility for, when you have a former prime minister as the vice president, that's sort of, again, it's like having, if you, somebody like a younger Biden in a role for the next Democratic president, whoever that person should be. It's interesting. It's very interesting. Every time I hear Aso, I think of Mount Aso. Every time, when I first heard Aso, I hadn't been in Japan. My Japanese was not as good. It's still not that great, really. But the way that some of the media was saying it, I thought they were saying it like Aso, like they were actually insulting the man. The way they said it and pronounced it, it almost sounded insulting. So I was like, what? Why would they say that? Oh, they're just pronouncing it Aso. They're just pronouncing his name wrong. It's Aso, not. See where I'm getting? Some people pronounce it wrong. But Mount Aso-san in Kyushu is a active volcano and really, really good. I put Aso on the same level as Bob Dole. That's an interesting comparison. It's very interesting. Maybe, yeah. Bob Dole was. I actually met Bob Dole in 1996 when he was running for president, and I sat down with his wife, who was not as popular because she wasn't running for president at the time. And I went to the Iowa caucus, and with the Ohioa, which was knocking on doors and stuff, and that was really fascinating. And he signed my Dole and Bob. Was it Kemp Dole? And he signed my poster. I had one of his campaign posters, which is cool. And I got to meet I went to Ohio State University, so I got to meet both the political candidates. I got to meet President Bush, Papa Bush we call him, here in Japan, and I got to meet Bill Clinton. And in '96, I got to meet Dole and Clinton as well when he came through Ohio State campus as well. It's just so cool to go to a big school like that. And Ohio was a swing state, so we always had the politicians coming in there. So Dole did lose to Clinton. It was Clinton's 8 years. I'm not an ultra political person here, but it was a good time to travel. I started backpacking in Clinton's administration. At the end of it, it was very easy to get around the world. Flights were cheap, comparatively, easy to get visas. It was a great time to travel. I took advantage of it. And I guess if there's one advice I had for you, not to get too far off of why we're doing this live stream, but I would say don't wait until retirement to travel. I'm so happy now that I had traveled in the 1990s backpacking than I did right now, before over-tourism, before, and everybody talks about how like income inequality. It wasn't that long ago. A lot of people didn't have any disposable income to do any kind of world international travel. So as much as we talk about income inequality, more people are traveling now than they did 30 years ago. That's a fact. So it's impressive to see how many people around the world can go internationally and afford to travel to a place like Japan. Although Bali is a much better and affordable destination, I think. It's a beautiful place. Or Thailand too. I love Mount Aso. Now we're all talking on the same page here when we get away from politics and go in the travel. I was a decade before John. Trans-Pacific tickets were what? My round trip ticket to go back and forth to Japan was about $700 on major carriers. And you could get $500 JAL flights round trip in the 90s. It was such an awesome. JTB USA ran these deals for $500 round trip. When they couldn't sell out all the tickets, because Japan was not such a popular destination, JTB USA would sell some of the remaining JAL tickets for $500 round trip from New York to Tokyo or Kansai. So cheap, so incredible. This is before fuel surcharges and stuff. It was the best time to travel internationally. I traveled all through China as well. I loved whatever the politics are of China. Forget that for a second. China is such an amazing country to travel around. Back in the 1990s, I have such fun memories. India as well. A lot of these countries, so I always have a very fun. Now Zip Air is now $180 per leg that's pretty cheap. But Sam, in the 90s, we had a really good flight experience. I remember getting a round trip ticket for, I think it was like $650 from Newark to Tokyo, and on Continental Airlines. I loved Continental. And the flight attendant upgraded me. You've already heard this story. The flight attendant upgraded me from economy to first class. I was in 1C. And I was in the, how would I say it? I was in the worst seat possible, the one in the very back, in the center of a 5-seat center area where you got to go through 2 people to go to the restroom, and you hear every single flush on both both in-flight toilets. It's the worst seat. I didn't want to sit down, so I was helping everybody put their bags up in the back. I was like, "Oh, hello, welcome to the flight. Can I help you with your bags?" I just didn't want to sit down. I was that kind of a person. Everybody said yes, and I'm helping put the bags up here and like have a great flight. I would just pretend to be a flight attendant in a way, I guess, because the last thing I wanted to do was to go to sit down. And the flight attendant came up to me and he says, "You're making us all look bad here." I was generally scared when he came. He said, "You're making us all look bad here. We're going to have to do something about that." And I was like, "Oh my God, what?" And he says, "Come with me. We're moving you." I go, "Oh crap." I was like, how could this get worse? And he goes, "We're moving you to 1C." And instantly I go, holy crap, he's putting me in first class? So back then, if you're doing good stuff, sometimes the good people did get recognized and you got to get moved. I don't know if I was doing something good or bad, but I got to move. Oh my God, I didn't sleep on that flight. Although I had it was like a full bed. I ate that surf and turf. I ate the entire cheese platter. I might have had one too many drinks. I don't know. I don't. All I remember was that I enjoyed every single second of that 14-hour flight, and it's 14 hours going the other way, so it's another hour longer, I believe. Oh my goodness! So I have mad love for Continental because they upgraded me to first class once. It's a cool little story. So the more you travel, the more you'll get like stories like that, right? If you were running for a Japan Prime Ministership, which I never would, and I can't, what would be your top policies? Alternatively, what would you like to see from the new Prime Minister? Chan, that's such a deep question. Gosh. I don't know. You know what I want? Okay, maybe there's 2 things. I would want better relations with China and Korea, because I think if China and Korea can work stronger together, and then Japan can have a much stronger economy. So I think better relations with China and Korea would be one thing. Find ways to put the things from World War II into the past, but do it in a way that also respects people in Japan, right? Japan has apologized in its own way. Sometimes they say they didn't bow low enough. I think those people, a lot of them have passed away and are gone. I don't know how much more, but that's the Prime Minister's job to figure out how low to bow. I don't know if you keep being apologetic, but you have to find a way to make our neighbors, us all work together in a way that benefits Japan. You know what I mean? That'd be my first goal, and to build stronger relations with China. And for tourism, I don't know. I'm kind of like be more cautious with immigration. Try to find ways to attract more people, especially in the healthcare try to attract more people from neighboring countries to come here to Japan first, I think. I love some of the best nurses that are here are from the Philippines. I mean, I think a lot of people from Vietnam that are working here are working as hard or harder than some Japanese. I think there's some people that take advantage of the system, and maybe 1 or 2 bad A's get called out, but there's a lot of people from neighboring countries that are doing a great job. Assess needs that Japan has and find ways to fill those. The healthcare sector is a huge one that we need right now. You need actual human beings. And the most important thing, I'm going to move away a little bit here, is find ways to encourage fixed tourism in Kyoto. I think that's more of a local thing. I'll let Kyoto do what Kyoto wants to do. Find ways to encourage young couples, Japanese couples, or couples like me and my own wife, to have more kids and have more policies that encourage that. I don't think that we've gone far enough. The education system needs to be revamped. I think it's good, but it's too much. There's a lot of stress on working mothers and fathers right now. Tokyo's done a good job, but a lot of prefectures are way behind. Tokyo, we have free daycare, I guess you could call it daycare. We call it hoikuen, which is sort of like preschool. They're actually learning stuff there, which is good. They're not just playing. But hoikuen is free, or basically free depending on your income. They do a really good job with it. They also allow you to choose which school you want to go to, so you could go to an international school, and I believe the city will subsidize it a little bit. You still got to pay a lot of money for these international schools, but schooling in general is really hard. I mean, you got to pay a lot of money for these juku or cram schools. I don't even know why they do that, but if you're not teaching properly in the schools where you can't learn everything in the time that's allotted, it's just inefficient. But Japan has its own way to do stuff, and I'm not Japanese, so it's just different, but it doesn't encourage people to have more kids. So they need to find ways to make life better for parents that have kids. Maybe more robots, I don't know. I'd want that. And there's a lot of people getting married in Japan now. I see it, but they're just not having kids, or they're having just one kid because the costs are too much. It's too hard. But the costs are going up. The one thing I disagree with the new incoming prime minister, and this is the biggest thing. I think I had to stand up because my back's hurting. John as PM, Adriatico's Pizza. Oh, we got some Ohio State. Vela knows my love and affection for Adriatico's Buckeye Special. I couldn't get the half-size one. I had to get the full Buckeye, and only Buckeyes would know what that means. It's basically a pizza that's bigger than some people. This thing is massive. You had to go full Buckeye. Yes, free free Adriatico's Pizza for everybody, especially on South Campus. Bela knows what I'm talking about. I miss you, Bela. I don't fully agree on the way that they're going to be and you're seeing right now the yen get weaker. I think it's at 151 of the dollar, and you might see it get a little bit weaker still, because her stimulus policy goes along the lines of what Prime Minister Abe wanted to do, which is more stimulus. And I think when you give stimulus to Japanese, they put it in the bank and save it. Stimulus is money that people are supposed to use to spend. I'd say the majority of people get a check or money and they keep it in the bank and they never touch it. It doesn't change the patterns of people buying stuff. And believe it or not, there's one policy in particular that Sanseido, which is the right-wing party of Japan, believes in. Just lower the consumption tax and let the Japanese people that need it the most, especially on like food, let people who need the money just get the money and stop and get the government out of it. Bring the consumption tax down to 5%, which is what it was 10 years ago. And people will save $1,500 a year on buying groceries at the supermarket. They'll buy more food and they'll have more money to pay for 2 months of rent or more gas for their car. They're trying to get gas prices down, and they've done good with that. Inflation is certainly not like what it was in a lot of other countries, but we have it here. I think they need to raise the interest rates, but I think her policy on that is causing the yen to weaken right now, and that's why. I think it's 151 to the dollar. It used to be in 2008 78 yen to the dollar, so we're more than double. We've had it more than double that. So don't worry, we're visiting in a few months. In a few months, you'll probably still have 150 yen to the dollar, which is a pretty good rate if you're coming from abroad. There should not be any tax. There weren't any taxes in the 1980s in Japan. Believe it or not, the first tax, I think it was when 3% tax rate came in 1989 or 1990, I think it was. So Japan had no consumption tax until then, and then it's gone from 3% to 5% in 1995, which was a few years before I got here, to 8%. I think was announced in Prime Minister Abe's first term, wasn't it? And then everybody to 10%, sorry, but he brought it back down to 8%, and then they raised it to 10% for everything except for food and restaurants, so it still stayed at 8%. I think just bring it down to 5%. Those are the people who buy groceries, that's where they need it the most, and that extra $1,500, probably a huge deal. If I was Prime Minister, I'd have a slightly different monetary policy. Get the government out of the way and let the people keep the money as much as possible, instead of giving them money which they'd never spend. If you gave $1,000 to people in the U.S., what would they actually spend it on? A new iPad, maybe new headphones, stuff maybe not made in the United States. I don't know. Tokyo gave us money. Here's an interesting, and thanks for that, Walter. How do you feel about, okay, let me get to this in a second, Walter. Tokyo gives us credits because we have a child. And these credits can only be used on things made in Japan that are for children. And we were able to get some really interesting stuff for Leo, made in Japan stuff, like from the Tokyo government. But they had like these ways to do it that made sure that you spent the money in a way that would help the local economy. It's very interesting, the way that they can do this. Walter writes in here, how do you feel about the comments about work when Japan has suffered from crippling overwork debts and extreme work environments? That's a good question. I don't know. That's going to be a huge debate, and already you have to look at it from the national government here that might be saying that. I'm not sure what the stance is on the national government, but Tokyo's governor Koike has been trying to get more people to have more days off. I think the national government as well. They've done a lot of things to try to get people to not work as much. I think it's that corporate culture, that Showa corporate culture, more so than the actual government. See, Japan is interesting. They have actual paternity leave for men when they have children, but almost no men take their paternity leave because it's not good within the corporate structure, and it probably will impact their promotions in the future. Because why would you leave the company? That means that you would leave the team that needs you, and you're showing less dedication. Your company is your family. So maybe that is the problem more so than the government. The government's trying to encourage, government's done some amazing stuff. They have taken a lot of when I got here in 1998, the holidays were all over the place. They moved a lot of those holidays to Monday to make 3-day weekends so more people could travel and stimulate the economy. That's like a no-brainer. So we got a ton of holidays on the weekends. They made Silver Week, put that together with a lot of holidays to make another week of vacations so people could travel around Japan and stimulate the economy more. So there's been a lot of good, really positive changes to get people to work, to spend more money and work less. The work's bad. I think work is work might be good, but the work is bad because then people don't have time to get married. People don't have time to date. People don't have time to have kids. People don't have time to travel around and spend more money. People don't have time to get off work at 5 p.m. and go out to those restaurants and eat and stimulate the economy, to have the free time to go to see a movie or go to a place in Tochigi to see a flower park. I want to see more people see more of those flowers. So there has to be a better balance to life, but in the end, Japanese corporations probably shoulder more of it. The culture within the company is different, and each place is different. Each company, each corporation is different. A lot of the old school ad agencies in Japan, you know, they go out drinking and smoking and they have a pretty unhealthy lifestyle, but you're probably going to make pretty good money, you know. It depends. And people do have a choice here in Japan, but a lot of people, they get right after college, they go right into a career. And typically you could stay in that career for the entirety of your life. But now that's no longer guaranteed. Chan's opinion, mandatory annual leave. This would stimulate the economy and encourage couples to reproduce. I probably would have 6 kids by now, Chan, with that policy on a 4-day work week in Japan. I think a 4-day work week, I think in a way we already have it. Because the way that they put the Mondays as holidays, we seem to have a Monday off like once or twice a month every month. It's like half the month we have a Monday off, it seems like, to be honest with you. And I don't even know what half those holidays are sometimes. I forget about it. It was like because they moved the culture day to a Monday that used to be on this day. So I forget sometimes. If they move the emperor's birthday to a Monday, that'd be very interesting. Chan for prime minister. Let's get him out of the trunk. Dude needs air. Put him right into a high stress position. I'd vote Chan for prime minister. Why not? Thing is that ordinary people in Japan do not vote for the prime minister like that. They vote for their representatives who will vote for the prime minister, who the ruling party will vote for the prime minister. So it's a different system. But we here at the Only Japan community, we all get our own votes, so we can vote the way we want to. I hear what you're saying about it not being as a big deal as when you think that she is a woman, as her accomplishments and record are what got her elected. But as a woman coming from me, it's a huge deal. Yeah, Jennifer, everyone's going to have a different opinion on this. I think so too. For me though, like I don't think it was a reason to disqualify her last time. I think she's even more qualified now than before that. But I think, as I also made this comment too, I think for a lot of girls in Japan, they're seeing a woman prime minister in Japan, and I do think that is a really big deal. I'm talking more about the politics of it, and I think that it should never have been a deal. I think there's a lot of foreigners that might be Japanese citizens that might make a good voice in the government as well. I have a lot of foreign friends. This is going to shock you, but I have a lot of foreign friends that their heart is in Japan, and they probably have more of Japan's interests in their heart than they do of who they are as a person, their background. So I've got foreign friends that know their art, that know Japanese art and culture better than Japanese do. So I can't say that in the future we won't have a foreign prime minister. That'd be really weird. But we very well could have a half a prime minister, somebody who's half this, half that. I see it as happening. A lot of the prime ministers now have work experience in other countries too, which is a great thing. So, yeah. And Jennifer, I love your channel. Thank you, Jennifer. We as Westerners try, and I am still a Westerner here, we as Westerners try to impose our way of life on Japan. This is true. Culturally, they see work differently. I agree, try to find a median grade. It's an irritating thing for me. I try to focus on the positives, but it's very true that when Westerners come to Japan to live here, I'll be, I'm not going to change their mind, because you can't change these people's minds. But they talk about how the flaws of Japan could be fixed by adapting a Western solution. That's not how Japan works. Maybe it's a good idea, but there's too many pros to just letting the way it is be the way it is and let the people of Japan decide. Then your system, I see too many cons. Who doesn't love the Japan's system? Is perfect. I go in there, I take a number, I sit down and wait, my number's called, I get the service, right? It just seems to work well. It's like everything is like so orderly, everything. People stand on the left when the train door opens so people can get out, and then when they're all out, we all move in orderly into the train. It's like clockwork. It's so perfect. When somebody who has a disability comes on the train or is older or maybe looks like they're struggling, we stand up and let them sit. More so than anywhere else in the world that I've seen. It's an amazing thing. It's so much so that I don't know, I think that Japan has made me a better person, because those differences between the US culture and the Japanese culture are like much more obvious to me when I see them, and has a bigger impact on me because I know the American culture and I see how how the Japanese culture is so different to it, and I like to take the good stuff from the U.S. culture. I love how Americans are so friendly. You might disagree with me on that. I still think Americans are so friendly. You can turn to somebody waiting in line, and you can make friends with people. It's very hard to do that in Japan, you know, because people are very risk averse. They don't like strangers as much. But in America, I still see Americans being probably one of the friendliest people in the world. Despite all the political differences, I don't think that most people talk about politics to each other all the time. I think we're talking about food or about music or about other stuff. We just are so hyper focused on it because that's what's on TV too much. You know, what's on social media too much, which is another reason why I don't really use Facebook and stuff, you know. I'm just a happier person that way. But I really do believe that I've had a very happy life here because I try to take the good stuff that came from being an American, from my upbringing there, and I embrace the good stuff that we have here in Japan. And I also know that, yeah, you know what? Japan's not perfect. And this channel is probably the first place that I'm telling you some of this stuff that a lot of people want to come and move here. I said, don't you dare come here and move and think it's going to be all paradise. It is challenging to come and move into a foreign culture. It is not going to be the same. There are going to be things that might be good for you to try, because then you start to love where you came from even more. Because Japan is not a perfect system for you because you don't know it. So you're going to be really shocked with a lot of the stuff when you look under the skirt and see what's there. It's maybe not what you expected, so to speak. You know? All right, this is one of my favorite places to come and sit. I just want to point this out here. This is where Spaceboat is, and just a few, just before I started the live stream, we had a Spaceboat go by here, but this is a really, hold a second, I want to get this nice and large. It was a double Spaceboat that went by. The Hotaluna and the Esmeraldas passed one another. That's a big deal here. For me, it's like seeing, I don't know, it's a very rare, it feels like a rare phenomenon when Spaceboat passes one another, like you're seeing history. But Spaceboat is, yeah, it's very important to this channel because it's one of the coolest things of Tokyo. Hello from Seattle. Hey, excited about female president. How's December for visitors? How does it snow in Tokyo or Kyoto? I'm okay getting off of this Prime Minister talk for a little bit and talk about December. So Shubha, I could say that December is, the beginning of it is a low season in Japan. You're probably going to find the weather chilly, but Tokyo is more fair. I'd say more like Washington, D.C. or Virginia, North Carolina maybe, and Sendai would be more like Boston, you know, or Anchorage, depending on this. But December is not too bad. You definitely need to have a down jacket. Tokyo, maybe not for Tokyo. You probably probably hovering around 9 to 11 degrees, about 46 to 52 degrees Fahrenheit, I would say. There are less tourists here at that time. You start to see the Christmas decorations, the illuminations start, which is beautiful around here, around December 1st, I guess. It's a good time to be here. It doesn't rain as much. You get amazing views from right there, Skytree. December's great because the skies are clear. Japan's, you can just barely see it here. That's the Skytree. You can see all the way to Mount Fuji in the winter because the humidity goes away. There's no haze in the air, so the views are amazing. So I can say for sure, December is not a bad choice. I think the summer is so oppressive. Just the only thing I like about summer is the days are longer and you can wear shorts. Because I just love wearing shorts and a t-shirt or a tank top. I just love wearing, flip-flops. I don't like wearing a lot of clothes. It makes it so easy. Just get a pair of shorts and a t-shirt and leave. The less I can think about what to wear, the better. But that time of year in December is so nice. For the cuisine is still good. You still have the autumn cuisine. You start to get the Christmas cakey, and you start to hear the story about KFC and Christmas and all that stuff. It's an annual phenomenon, but it's a beautiful time. It's a good time. There's no bad time to visit Japan, but the low season would be maybe the beginning of December after the leaf. You know what? You're probably coming this year. You're probably coming at the best time for the leaves changing. Most of the country will still have the leaves changing in the beginning of December. So that's actually a pretty good. That's actually a pretty good time. A lot of people assume it's going to be in November. That's an assumption, especially good for the mountains. But it's the early December, Kyushu, Hiroshima, Tokyo. That's when a lot of the leaves really start to change, and you still get a lot of good autumn color. So you're coming at a pretty good time. Thanks for that. Yeah, and again, this is about a political stream in a sense about the new prime minister. I really don't care what any of you guys' politics are. Most of my friends here are all over the spectrum. When you're a foreigner living in Japan, like, you rarely even talk about that. Only new people who just moved here to Japan start to talk about, are you Republican or are you Democrat? It's not even an issue. And for the most part, like, nobody cares here because we live in Japan. And we don't have to talk about the great thing about being a foreigner here is you can't vote in Japan and you don't care about the Japanese politics so much. But I kind of care because I'm very interested in how Japan works. So politics is not something that I get too stressed out about. And even in the US, whoever the president is, I'm just going to be supporting them as much as I can because I want the US to be successful, because I am still American. And I think every American should be the same way, whether you agree or not. And I know and I can't really believe that that's such a controversial thing, but I can understand also a part of me these days, the 1998 John, which left the United States and moved here to Japan, cannot believe that that's where we are. But the 2025 John can kind of believe that that's where we are, where, just president's there for 4 years. What are you going to do? You're going to hope for the best. And I do that, I want the U.S. to win, and because when the U.S. wins, most of the time, Japan wins. Yeah, there's a kid over there. There's a lot of families in this area. It's a nice area to live. This is my ward, Chuo Ward, center of Tokyo. This, believe it or not, the center. They call it the center anyways. Do you have an OCI card overseas? I do. I have an OCI card. I'm an overseas citizen of India. I don't know if that's a good or bad thing. I guess a good thing. I embrace, I don't know. Should I even talk about it? I got to get going. I got work to do. Like, I embrace my my background. And when I grew up in in junior high school and elementary school, I got picked on a lot because, I was different. I'm not exactly, I have a different color. My mother's from India originally. I got picked on a lot in school. Because I'm darker, people would call me turd. I got picked on a lot. It's a tough thing, What are you gonna do? So, but when I was growing up, I kind of was angry about that, right? You're kind of angry when people call you, poop and turd and stuff, just because you have a little bit more color by kids. So you kind of, and I started thinking when I got older, I said, actually, I should embrace that side and learn more about it. And I did. My mom hadn't gone back to see her own family in decades. And I said to her, I want to go. I want to go to India. I want to go and meet your family. Crap, I got a ton of cousins. And so I did, and I really fell in love with the country and the people, because I have family there, and I saw another side of everything, and then I understood like a lot more, and I kind of regret having feelings, because you're getting picked on and you don't want to be different, but I kind of embrace the fact that I am different, right? So I'm glad, and through my mom's passport, and she was born in India, I was able to get an OCI card, so I can work in India legally. I can live, I can open a bank account and do everything. I can help the Indian economy, and I love India. I very much do. It's the largest democracy. I had friends at the Indian embassy. They changed quite a bit. When I was getting the OCI card, I did it here in Japan. But yeah, I'm half Indian, just like Leo is half Japanese, and I'm very proud of that. You shouldn't be sorry about me being bullied. I think everybody takes it a different way. Sometimes it can make you a stronger person and bring you closer to what your background is, and some people go the other way. And I was able to learn a better way to do it. I got to tell you something. All right, the last thing, I have a degree in economics, and from Ohio State, and it has nothing to do with money. All right. Economics was the greatest major that I could have ever taken, because it taught me more about life, and not about money, but how things balance out, how you look for equilibrium. It's more of a practical way to look at life by studying economics. It was the most fascinating major, right? And I learned about money and all that other stuff too. Banking. I took a lot of banking, money and banking courses and stuff as well, but it was the other courses about equilibrium and finding when you go too far, you go too, supply and demand and all these principles. And that's all economics is a bunch of principles. You start to find ways that those principles actually apply to everyday life. And one of the greatest things I did was to get a major in economics. And it taught me more than just like going into a banking or a business profession. It teaches you a life side of things, a practical side of things that's not abstract, that's not based on emotion, right? Now we base so much stuff, especially younger people, on emotion. Economics is on data, and these principles that are based on data that help you find an equilibrium within yourself. And I'm really grateful. I had some pretty good professors too, more data-driven than emotional-driven, I guess you could say. But the best butter chicken. Oh my God, are we talking about butter chicken? If we're talking about Indian food now, stop it. Now I'm getting hungry. I haven't had lunch yet. We gotta, what I have to do? I have to get in touch with Eric Surf 6, and we gotta go get some Indian food then. I should take him to that place in Higashi Ginza. Yeah, your past makes you who you are today. You learn look, life is not supposed to be easy, right? I don't think it's supposed to be too easy. I think when you get knocked down, you get knocked around, you get scars and bruised, it helps you with a personality. You understand that nothing is a straight line, because if you aren't, this is the thing that younger people maybe don't understand because they were too coddled. The older generations always say that. Like, I've been knocked down a lot, I know that it doesn't go in a straight line, but when things don't go your way, it's very easy to fold. Like bankrupt, nothing, nobody likes you, it seems like the whole world's against you. And then 2 weeks later, everything's going in your favor. Everything's going in the direction that you had always hoped, better than you had hoped. Life is so weird like that. But you have to be out there and you have to make stuff happen. Just do anything. So a younger person once asked me, and there's somebody who's visiting from a friend of mine, one of his cousins is visiting, and I think one of the things he asked me was, like, he didn't know what he really wanted to do with his life. And I was like, gosh, I don't know if I'm the right person to answer this. And I told him, like, it doesn't matter at your age. Do something. Just do something. Take a job as a janitor. It doesn't really matter. Take a job, any job, and do it. And even maybe with something that you're interested in. And if you just did that and don't think about looking into a career right away, another door is going to open. But whatever job that you do that job better than anybody else can do it. And let everybody see that you are the best damn janitor, or toilet cleaner out there. And people are going to recognize that, or you're going to build up some amazing habits, and the next door is going to open. Because my whole life has been just like a series of doors that just seem to open it, and I just, at the right time or the wrong time or whatever, I seem to go through the next door, and another door opens up, and it's fascinating how I ended up here. So younger people need that message, I think. If you're lost, that's totally fine. Just do something. It doesn't matter. And another door is going to open, and then you're going to figure out what you want by doing something. You know, I was in Australia, and I was helping a guy who had a small business. He was selling shaved ice on Bondi Beach. And I said, okay, I'm going to help you out with it. And I did. And by helping him out, like all these other opportunities for places to travel to, I got to meet a ton of other people. I made so many friends on Bondi Beach. Everybody at that time knew who I was on Bondi Beach because I was a guy who was selling the shaved ice. So many doors opened by just doing something. So when you think about that, just do something, you know, even if it's for free or whatever, and you're going to find another path to go on. But there's no right way or wrong way, really. I mean, you don't want to break the law, but you will find who you really are by just taking any path and finding a way, you know, an interest that you like within it, and building up a reputation of being somebody who does it better than anybody else. So when I made Only in Japan videos in 2012 and 2013, when I started, if you go back to the old channel, which I don't get anything from that anymore. If you look at the videos, I tried to do videos better than anybody else that was doing videos on YouTube at the time. And I still try to do that. It's real hard because people are good now. But whatever you do, you try to do it the best that you could possibly do it, so everybody could see that this is a person that's going to do the best job. Not because of the money, not because it's in their interest to do it, but that's just who they are. They're going to go out there and give you everything. When they decide to take on something, they're going to decide to do it the best that they can do it. And that reputation is something like when I restarted the channel, it didn't matter. People knew who I was. So I was still able to get access and jobs and everything based on the fact that they knew who I was. I was able to get stuff done and do it, and they trusted that I would do it to the best of my ability, 1,000%, and make good stuff. Now, when I watch the old videos, they're not as good, but that's the best we could do in 2013. In 2012, 2013, most videos weren't even in 1080p, okay? And editing software was not what it was. But if you take a look at the content from 2013 on the old channel and the content from other Japan-based YouTube channels, it was heads and shoulders like above everybody at that time. And it's really hard to keep up that, because now everybody's caught up and everybody, it's much easier to be able to produce really good content, but you still have to have a story. There's just more YouTubers, because you couldn't make money back then. It was beer money. But I knew back then, because I'd been in Japan long enough, that if you have a reputation for doing really good stuff, you're always going to be able to find a job. Doesn't matter what you do. Doesn't matter what your major is. If you have a reputation of doing really good work, then you're always going to have a job. And no matter whatever you do, because they trust that whatever job that they throw at you, you're going to do a really good job at it. And maybe this is what Takaichi Sanae is, why Takaichi Sanae is now the Prime Minister of Japan. She has been put in so many different positions, and I can't say for sure whether or not she's done an amazing job of it, but she's built up a reputation of doing a good job in all these positions, a reputation of being a good leader. Whether you agree with her politics or not, she has a reputation of being a good leader within her party, and that's why she's in the position of prime ministership. And I don't know if I'd be the same person if I was living in Japan, if I was living in the United States now. But Japan, the biggest thing that Japan has left an impact on me has been in trying to do things as well as I can do, and feeling shame if I underperformed and let somebody down. it's hard for you maybe to understand this from a Western point of view, but I really feel it because the longer I've been here, I don't want to let anybody down. I don't want to let my community down. I don't want to let my family down. I don't want to let the United States down. I don't want to let Japan down. So I try really my best. And after I've completed whatever video or mission or job, I feel really good about it. And that's, if you are working, again, if you're, in a factory, I worked at Ocean Spray repackaging drinks. It was one of the hardest jobs I ever had to do. But I did that job the best that I could do, and I pissed off a lot of full-time workers because they kept telling me to slow down. I said, I can't slow down. I got one speed, autopilot, man. I would tear open those cardboard boxes and put it make pallets out of them real fast. And they didn't understand what was driving me. I don't know either, but you try to do things the best you could do, and you build a reputation for it, and you're always going to have a job. And that's what young people need to understand. You don't need to get a degree. I got to tell you, university degree is almost meaningless these days. If you have a reputation of being a person that can bring people together and do really good work, I'd say like having a vocational degree and starting a business, you have a higher chance of making a heck of a lot more money than you do in a university degree in some art. I'm just saying it because you have life skills that's hard to replace with AI, and you know what hard work is. And that's probably the kind of person that I would hire. As Spaceboat goes by there. Sorry, we're totally off of the topic, but I do see some similarities with maybe Takaichi Sanae, and I'm going to be cheering for her as loud as I can, because if she doesn't do well, then Japan doesn't do well. So we want her to do really, really well. I dropped out of high school to work in tech and got to here, but I was early to this, and it was a different game now. It is a very different game, but I see the game changing. I only see you as an American. That's fine too. I think because I do this channel and I do it in English, but I don't know if my wife sees me just as an American. She says that I'm sometimes in many things more Japanese than Japanese too. So it just depends. But I think with the AI age, I would encourage Leo loves the garbage man and the recycle guys. And I have mad respect for everybody who's doing jobs that will not be able to be replaced by AI. You have to think like this. Plumbers, even the mailman. I hope the mail never gets replaced by AI. But I think Leo should maybe he should go to college too. But I think he should do what he wants to do. But I also think he should be able to do something that a computer can't do and learn a vocation. I think everybody should learn a vocation. I wish I had learned more about automotives, how to fix an engine. I'm just something that could be more practical than just a college degree. But I did this in the 90s. I just don't think getting in debt for something that's going to get replaced by AI is a real smart idea right now. But no matter what you decide to do, if you have a reputation of working your butt off and you do it better than anybody else, right? And you have a sense about, how to get along with people, and you bring people together, and you have emotions and you feel strongly, but you don't impose who you are on other people, and you find a way to work with people, you're always going to have a job. You're always going to be successful. You're always going to be somebody's friend, and you're always going to do well for yourself. And you might get knocked down, but you're going to be successful because there's so many people that suck at that. Such easy words. There are too many people that suck at that. And you would be in a very, very small minority, and you'd be somebody I think a lot of people would hire eventually. Just watching a boat go by. It's nice here. I think basic car maintenance school should be taught in high school. It wasn't used to? We used to have in high school when I went there, we would have guys that in their senior years that they could study mechanics, like to be a mechanic. And I think in the 90s, it wasn't a job that was looked up to. And when I go through life and experience, the greatest thing, and this is a Seinfeld thing too, it's like you find a good mechanic, like a lot of problems in your life are solved, all right? So I have mad respect for people who can do stuff that I can't do, that has studied the vocations like that. And they, in the 90s though, when I was going to school, I don't think they got as much respect as they should have. And now in the AI era, I think they're going to get a lot more respect now. A lot more. So I was a mechanic in the military. Oh Lord, breaking work, I can imagine. I can only imagine. It's a dragonfly. It's a big one. All right, so you see that the focus is not that great on this iPhone. All right, guys, I gotta run. This has been really interesting. But if you have questions or feelings about it, a 1.5 hour live stream on Japanese politics that had nothing to do with it, leave in the comments below. I appreciate the feedback. And the postcards will be going out in sometime next week. The postcard is going to be the Akita Autumn Fireworks Festival. I'm in a happy at the finale of it. I was filming and got a really amazing picture, so that'll be the one going out, and I got a pretty cool stamp that'll be going on it as well. So those postcards are on the Patreon site, and I still have a couple of spots for daimyo packages. So if you guys want me to send you a package here from Japan, I make care packages with local stuff. We've got the chestnut chocolate cookies. Oh my God, they're so good. They're going to be going in this month's package. It should be cool enough that they won't melt in the boxes. So I'm looking forward to that. Thanks guys for the support. I'll see you in the next episode tomorrow with some main channel episodes coming up for sure. Gotta get back to work. Mata ne. Thanks moderators for sticking in here for an hour and a half. I just saw Tim go by there. Enjoy. Thanks guys.